All right, so we are tracking Hurricane Ida still in the Atlantic. This Thanks for joining for this afternoon, or close to the afternoon anyway, right? 2 minutes away. And this is brought to you by Malone Roofing Services. Again, we do have appreciate our partners and our sponsors during this season. And Malone, of course, has been with us for a couple of years now. So thank you to Malone Roofing Services. Show them some love. Visit their website and give their Facebook page a like. So, of course, we are still tracking Hurricane Ida out there in the Gulf of Mexico. Since last night, we've had, I'll say at least for the time being, a little bit of encouraging news. If you were with me yesterday in the early afternoon, I was talking about the track and looking at what the National Hurricane Center had predicted coming off of Cuba. And I told you that they had predicted coming off of Cuba, and a few hours after that, they were expecting this to be up to a Category 2 pretty quickly off of Cuba. Now, I said that was ambitious, and I was hoping that wouldn't happen, and it didn't. It came off of Cuba, stayed at 80, and now it's 85 miles per hour. So it has strengthened a little bit, and the pressure has dropped a bit since last night. But what we're seeing right now, and so I want to say, from last night to right now, things have been, I try to get some encouraging things out of this, right? You got to try and look for little nuggets in there. And so I guess the encouraging thing from last night until right now is that we haven't seen extreme strengthening, at least for the short term. Now, right now, what we're seeing on the on the visible satellite picture is now we're starting to see that inner core beginning to consolidate there. And obviously, I don't need to tell you this, but at the end of the loop, we're starting to see the core around what is the eye. We haven't seen that official eye make its appearance yet, but it's starting to on the visible satellite picture. So, we knew this was going to at some point get in those right conditions and get over the warm waters of the Gulf. And by the way, it still needs to move over that warm pocket, the Gulf, the loop current. And at this point right now, although it hasn't strengthened very fast up to this point, we're starting to see the eye. And then once the eye develops and that core is solid around the middle, then we're going to see steady strengthening with a period of rapid intensification is going to be likely at some point. It's hard to tell exactly when that would begin, but I would say right now, from the trends I'm seeing on satellite until landfall, I think we're going to see strengthening from this. The hope is that we don't get that ridiculous rapid intensification that even, kind of overachieves what the National Hurricane Center is thinking. So I think from right now moving in at this point, looking at the satellite picture, this is becoming obviously a very formidable looking hurricane, and only will continue to do so as we go through the next few hours here as it makes its way toward the coast. So that's kind of what's going on. Another thing I was kind of noting here, and I'm not sure if this is what's happening, but it's interesting to look at the satellite here, and you see these kind of like little dark areas. It's possible some dry air made its way in to this at some point, maybe last night, and it's still trying to kind of filter that out a little bit, and try and breathe, because when you see kind of those dry slots, sometimes it indicates that maybe it's dealing with a little bit of dry air. But I got to tell you, at the end of the loop here, it's looking very solid, and that core is the main thing, right? The core is the main thing. The bands on the outside can be repaired, right? But once that core is set, we're going to see some strengthening from this, and I think it begins right now up until we go into tonight. We're going to see some pretty significant strengthening. I'm still expecting this. I think a Cat 4 is going to still be on the likely end. At a minimum, we're going to probably get at least a very high-end Cat 3, but I still think Cat 4 is probably the scenario we're going to be looking at. So what changed since last night? I mean, not much, honestly. There may have been a shift a little bit to the west, but like I've been telling y'all from the start, yes, look, where we get that landfall closer to the coast, that's where some potential for catastrophic damage is going to be. When you talk about the surge and you talk about the winds and the rainfall potential there, that's all going to be close to the coast. But remember, the impact spread out from this, not just around the center of circulation. So, last night there was some confusion on landfall intensity, but I do want to confirm there that the National Hurricane Center still does have this as a Category 4 hurricane at landfall, and even now inland, right? Last night this was 125 inland a bit, but now they do still have this as a Category 4. That's 130 with gusts up to about 160 miles per hour. Now they have come down on the winds just a little bit, where last night it was 140 predicted, and now it's 130. But remember what I always tell you about intensity forecast. you take them with a grain of salt, because if this thing does undergo a rapid intensification, it's only we don't know just how high it's going to get. So 130 I think is very realistic. Of course, it could go higher than that. So that this is a look at the current cone. Again, it does take it in just southwest of Dulac, and all these areas here. Remember, coming through Morgan City, Homa, all these areas. Remember, you're going to be very close to the eye, and we're talking pretty significant winds around these areas, and the surge as well on the right side of the track is going to be a big concern here, and that would include So remember, around the Grand Isle area as well. Some folks down there watching as this center comes in here, we're going to have that push of water in this area, pushing water in, and it could be a significant amount of water, potentially unprecedented amounts of water, coming in from this direction. So that's concerning, obviously. And if you look at the predictions, this did not change, right? I mean, we're still expecting a large Category 4 hurricane, and so the prediction is 10 to 15 feet of water rise along the coast there. We still have 6 to 9 feet possible west of there into Vermilion Bay area, and we still have 4 to 7 feet around Lake Pontchartrain, and 7 to 11 feet along the Mississippi Gulf Coast in some areas there, stretching down toward the Louisiana coast on that dreaded right angle geography over there, still high. And then even Gulfport east to the Alabama Mississippi border, we still have the potential there to see 4 to 7 foot rise. So remember, bigger storm, going to stretch out, the wind field's going to expand, and it's going to be very powerful there toward the coast. And so we're expecting big surge amounts from this storm. It's one of the most concerning things. So if you notice, and I see some folks there, Savannah, asking about Pearl River. Yeah, so technically Pearl River is out of the cone, but remember, around that area, if this thing does take a more eastward track toward the end, because these are those little nuances I always talk about that you can't really predict. But as storms come in and they make their landfall, sometimes little things at the end, sometimes it feels friction of the actual land. And when it starts making landfall and the land can actually help to pull it a little bit more east than what was expected, it's hard to predict that these things could happen, but you can always have little shifts toward the end. So let's just play devil's advocate here, and we'll go both ways here, right? If it does start to take a little bit more of an east shift, that would take it right through the heart of Metro New Orleans, and of course, the coastal areas as well would still have the big impacts. But that would, if it takes a more east track, then we're talking about bigger impacts around this whole area, right? So remember, the cone is just saying where the center could be, but that it doesn't really necessarily talk about where the impacts would be felt still if it does take that. So, and then of course, if it takes a more westward track here, well, then you got more impacts if it would come up like this, Lafayette and all this area here, Acadiana, and even Lake Charles here to the west of it would get more impact there if it would take the extreme western portion of the cone. Trends on the modeling, at least, have still been, I've seen more of, I have not seen anything that would indicate a drastic shift to the east with this. The trends I've been seeing have been, have been more to the west, from what I've kind of been seeing there. So, take that for what it's worth. So yeah, surge is a big issue. I know some folks have asked him what I'm doing. We're actually leaving. We're gonna get out of here for this one. It's just has really just due to the potential of what it could be, and the rainfall amounts worry me across the Metro New Orleans area, even stretching over toward Lake Mentor and Kenner. The projections now, I know. We're going over to Florida around Pensacola area, Perdido area. So we found a little place there. So we just want to get out of the actual kind of danger zone of where the center will be coming in, although it might not be a direct hit from the center across New Orleans area. We'll still be on the the right side and have the potential for a lot of rainfall, and of course the winds, the power outages. So we just felt best, with 2 small kids, to get out of here, and because they were kind of scared during Zeta, and this one obviously could be a little bit worse than Zeta. So we'll be out of here. I just wanted to get on this morning and tell you guys, or early afternoon, whatever it is, tell you guys the latest on this storm. I'm gonna bring the computer. I'll be updating from the phone. Maybe get on for it. Maybe be able to get set up for maybe a Tropics After Dark or something later on. But I can't guarantee that. I don't know how the Wi-Fi and all is gonna be, and because I use a lot of graphics and video material here. Got good Wi-Fi here. I'm not sure how it'll be over there, and if it'll be able to handle it. So I don't know. But I'll update y'all on the page at least by the phone. But who knows about these types of live updates? So yeah, we'll be getting out of here for that, and hopefully I'll try and at a minimum, get set up on one of the iPads, and I'll be able to do it from the phone to at least kind of show y'all, what's going on. So look, I do fully expect I have to take care of things, on our end here as far as the house, kind of take care of some things and make sure everything's good to go, and kind of prepare for what maybe could happen if the worst case scenario takes place. But yeah, I'll still be updating y'all and trying to do some live updates still. So don't think I'm just this is the last thing you're gonna hear from me. It's not. You will still see me, and I will still be making, doing some live updates. But obviously, I'll be taking care of some stuff here on my end, so there might be a little bit of a delay there. But trust me, there'll still be some updates coming from the page. I'm not just gonna leave the live and then say, "Now, good luck, everyone. Fend for yourselves." No, I'm not gonna do that. Trust me on that. But again, with this one, it's just, for us, it's too much to just take a chance on, because I do think power outages are going to be almost a given, and don't want to deal with that. We don't have a generator, so yeah. All right, so there's a look at Ida right now. There's another look at it in the Gulf. You can kind of see obviously what's happening on satellite right now. At the very end of the loop, we're starting to see the eye become visible there on infrared. We're starting to see that core become a little bit more solid. It's still kind of in the I'm trying to fix myself stage, but once I do, watch out type of thing. So I think that's where we're at with this one, because once it gets, Tropics After Dark Beach Edition, Phil, I like that. Once it gets kind of that solid core, we're going to see this thing start to intensify. Just kind of going over some things I've gone over in the last few nights. Of course, there's that warm eddy and that loop current type thing. It needs to kind of still go through, right? And that's where the worry comes in with this, as far as the potential for rapid intensification. Looking at the rainfall amounts, they really haven't backed off a little bit. They really haven't too much. We still have that potential here, east of the east of the center here. And these pink areas are 15 to 20 inches possible, and the red areas are still high at 10 to 15 inches. I'm hoping and praying that the 15 to 20 don't come into fruition, because that would obviously cause some pretty significant issues. And even the 10 to 15 rainfall amounts would still probably cause some issues in some areas. So the rainfall still remains a big threat, and that extends out even toward Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama, and even stretching into the Florida Panhandle. The potential to see maybe 6 to 10 inches, depending on where the worst of the band's set up. So keep that in mind. This is a storm with although the center is going to be somewhere here, the impact stretch well beyond where the center is going to come in. And then we got to watch as this thing moves north. Remember, all that rain's going to fall up here. That all flows back down here, and so we got to check the rivers as well. Something that we're going to have to check on the river levels, and just make sure that those behave themselves too. So a lot of different things that we're going to have to watch over the next couple of days. This, of course, they've put that dreaded pink area on here, and that's the high chance, the high risk of flash flooding. But yesterday it was a red, but this is the type of things that these are the type of things that we look at. As I always mention, we fine tune things. As we get closer to the forecast, well, we have that high pink area now, so this is more confidence that if you're in that pink area, there's a high likelihood that you could experience, some flooding issues. And then that red area stretches up here as that storm moves up to the north. So those are kind of the little things that are fine-tuned as we move in here. Of course, these are the hurricane warnings. If you're in the purple, you're under a hurricane warning, so expect that you could see hurricane force winds. With the rainfall starting to come in late tonight, early tomorrow, that's something to watch for. Because when you get the rain first, it saturates the ground, and then you get the winds behind it, and that can lead to power lines and trees and issues with that, because they're easier to fall over. So that becomes an issue with these areas all seeing hurricane force winds potentially, or gusts especially, are going to be more likely. You have the red, that's tropical storm, and then tropical storm watches up there toward the north as the storm moves in that direction. Where is that image here? So this is kind of that, this is really the best way I can kind of go into specifics on the impacts for the area. And I kind of talked about this yesterday. It's a good graphic that they released. So if you're in that purple, you have the potential for wind greater than 110 miles per hour. So keep that in mind. 110 miles per hour are going to be possible if you're in the purple. If you're in the red area, 74 to 110 are going to be possible. That's just around category 1 to category 2. purple area, category 3 or higher is going to be potential for that. And then the orange, 58 to 73, yellow up there, about 39 and 57. If we're talking about power outages, that pink area right there, that's where the likely power outages become into play right there. And notice it does stretch to the west around the Acadiana, Lafayette area. There is the potential still. Remember, there's going to be a solid hurricane, so even west of the circulation, we're looking at impacts in that direction. So don't think because you will be west. This is not like the other storms where it's like if you're west, you get not much at all. This is different. And this is going to probably be a full core, looking storm as it moves in. So this kind of gives you an idea of what we could be seeing. That's sort of, I like to kind of verify this is what we're looking at currently on the satellite picture. And it's pretty close, right? Initializing, sees an eye forming there. But as we go into noontime, where we are right now, right, we're starting to see that eye beginning to become more visible on satellite. And then moving forward here, let me see how we... Let me see here. Yeah, so moving forward here toward landfall, you see what happens as we get toward landfall. So this is midnight tonight. At that point, I think the satellite's going to be really intimidating looking, and we're going to see, a full-blown hurricane on there, with the eye well developed. And this is midnight tonight. Now, keep this in mind, by 6 a.m. tomorrow, at that point, if you're leaving, you should probably be where you're going to be to ride out the storm by 6 a.m. tomorrow, because notice as we move in, that's when the bands actually start moving in, and not only in southeast Louisiana, but even toward, like, if you were planning on maybe going east around the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama coast, and the bands at that point by 6 a.m. tomorrow are starting to stretch in, right? So although the center will still be offshore, the bands are coming in at this point. So if you're going somewhere, if you're leaving today, I know the traffic's going to be bad. You really got to get that probably done by either tonight or really late tonight, overnight. But be where you are tomorrow by tomorrow morning, because things will start kind of going downhill by tomorrow morning. This is 6 a.m. and then this is noontime. At that point, we have those full-fledged rain bands starting to move in. At that point, with some of the rainfall totals beginning to pile up and the surge near the coast beginning to move in. That obviously that center is going to be getting very close to the shore there, and then it kind of parallels the coast a little bit and starts to make that turn north. And here's where the biggest concern for me comes in, and kind of why I made the decision to kind of get out of here with this one, because I don't want to take the chance. Because at landfall, you have it rounding the bend there around that high pressure, and at that point it's going to start to slow down a little bit, not stall, but slow down. Like I always say, it's like a car making a turn, slows down before it makes that turn, right? And that's what's going to be happening with this one. So this is noontime tomorrow, and then this is 6 p.m. tomorrow. So you see the movement. It's not much there, keeping in mind on the eastern side there, and of course the surge, the persistent surge, and then the eastern side at that whole time, the rainfall is going to be moving in. And so that's going to be several hours of rainfall dropping, and it's hard to tell exactly where it might happen, but some of those bands are going to be set up those training lines, and we could see too much rainfall falling in some areas. So, that becomes a rather big concern. So this is 6 p.m. tomorrow, still looking like that's when we're going to be seeing landfall, give or take a couple of hours, by the way. Could be a little bit faster, could be a little bit slower, but it looks like the evening hours tomorrow is when we have the storm coming in. And then so this is 6 p.m. and now this is midnight. So if you think about that, this is midnight, and at this point it's close to like Baton Rouge area, the center is. But remember, this entire time as it's making this turn, again, the trajectory it's coming in at is the most concerning to me, especially for southeast Louisiana, because it starts to make the turn north, but again, it doesn't get out of there. So rain is still falling in all these areas, and that's why the rain totals, I think, are so high as far as the projections go. So that's midnight tomorrow, going into Monday, and then it finally begins to lift out of here as we go into Monday afternoon and Monday evening. So there's going to be a time where I think the slowdown around landfall is something that certainly does concern me, because it's not going to be like a Zeta. Remember Zeta from last year? I look back at that. Zeta from last year was moving at 24 miles per hour at landfall. So yes, we took a hit from Zeta, but it was fast, and it got out of here pretty quickly. This one is probably going to be moving, I don't know, let's look back and see what the National Hurricane Center says. So they're saying around 10 miles per hour at landfall. That's not fast. I mean, it's not crawling, but it's not fast, right? So Right now, it's currently moving at 16 out there, but it is going to, it is going to slow down once we get to landfall, and that's going to create some issues. I can promise you that's going to create some issues, due to surge, due to rainfall, and just the persistence of the wind on things, especially close to the coast and inland a little bit, wherever those bands are going to be setting up. So that slowdown is not good. That's not what we want to see. But it does appear that's what we're going to get once we get into landfall there. So keep that in mind as far as the potential for rainfall. That's kind of why we're thinking that. This is the wind field. I don't know the exact measurement, but it has expanded since yesterday. And of course, the hurricane force winds are going to be, in here, and then the tropical storm force winds. The wind field has definitely expanded a bit. So, if you were to take this and bring it up here, I mean, we're talking about a pretty wide, area that will at least get tropical storm force winds at landfall. And as this thing begins to get its eye together and begins to expand, then the hurricane force winds will expand out a little bit as well, and the tropical storm force winds will begin to expand too. So this has definitely grown since last night, and this will continue to grow, I'm sure, as we go through the day and this thing begins to establish itself. Okay, so the wind field is going to be expanding once we get closer to landfall. So, something else to think about there. So yeah, that's the latest here on Ida. This is where landfall is expected. Again, it hasn't changed too much. We'll see little shifts back and forth, which will, obviously as we get closer to landfall, there'll still be some fine tuning that has to be, expected. But yeah, I mean, this is where the landfall is expected right now. Somebody asked about Slidell. There is the potential here around, they're estimating 4 to 7 feet around Lake Pontchartrain, and then 7 to 11 feet out there, in that area pushing to the west there, right? So there is the potential there for, to see some surge over in the Slidell area. Again, it just really depends. Every geography is different around the area, so it's hard to say exactly what you would see specifically, but I'm just giving you guys the potential of the type of surge that we could see from this system. So this is where landfall is expected. This is the 7 p.m. point, and keep in mind, this is 7 p.m. tomorrow, and it's inland, but they still say Cat 4, 130 gusting to 160, okay? I'm hoping we don't get to that. Hopefully we can keep this thing up, but right now I think starting from what I'm seeing on the satellite, it does appear that, that it is getting its act together. If you look at the end of the satellite right there, you can really see that core and some of those cloud tops bubbling up there toward the end. And of course, there's the eye beginning to make itself visible. And I think as we go through the day, the satellite's only going to become a lot more, maybe the word is intimidating, or I don't want to say scary, but, the type of satellites that we see in the Gulf in these hurricanes that we don't want to see. And I think we're moving toward that. And once the core is established and that eye is good and the eye wall is good, there's nothing that's going to really stop it from just continuing to strengthen all the way to landfall, with the potential of rapid intensification on a 12 to 24 hour period once it hits that warm current in the Gulf of Mexico. This is the wind field right here. Again, I don't know mileage, and right now I'm just doing a best estimation. Remember, this probably going to expand a bit once the eye is established. Tropical storm force winds will probably expand, and so I'm just saying, if you consider from here to here, we could see tropical storm force winds expanding out a bit, and the hurricane force winds will be expanding as well. But that's going to depend on where landfall is. But I'm telling you, west and east, you're going to feel some wind from this, at least tropical storm force, because the wind field is going to be expanding. I know someone just asked me to expand, show that. I don't know who it was. Saw someone just now. No problem, Marie. So yeah, that's what we're looking at right now. Obviously, thankful currently that we haven't seen it intensify too rapidly so far, but I think that may just be a temporary thing where we just have to wait, because I do expect this to start, from each advisory. I would think at this point on, we'll have a new one at 1 p.m., but I would think from each advisory moving forward, we're going to probably see pressure dropping and winds increasing every time. So the only thing we wait for is to see if we're going to go through a rapid intensification period, which is certainly going to be potential because of that warm area that it still has to move through. So a couple of things in the discussion here from the National Hurricane Center to talk about is let's see. They were mentioning that it did it did shift a little bit west since last night. I mean, very slightly, but they also remind you that not to focus on the exact details of the actual center, because the storm surge, the wind, the rainfall impacts are going to expand well far away from where the center comes in. So wind and rainfall is going to also penetrate inland through, early next week once Ida does make landfall and moves up to the north. So they were saying that. They also mentioned that I had given. They had said that they were a little bit surprised so far that it had not. They said they were somewhat surprised that they had not found a significantly deepening hurricane yet, which is good, right? That's a good thing. So they were surprised at that, but there's a caveat to that. They said, with that said, just like what I kind of mentioned here, looking at the satellite picture, they do mention that the low to mid-level eye and excellent spiral banding is there now in the storm, and given that it's a deepening tropical cyclone that's going into a favorable environment with low vertical wind shear, very warm water, that they do expect significant deepening here, and they also expect a time for rapid intensification during the next 24 hours. So thankful that we haven't seen it too quickly off of Cuba. Remember what I mentioned to y'all in the last couple of days, that sometimes when those storms come off of Cuba, they do have a time where they have to kind of recover a little bit, and thankfully this one has had to recover a little bit and didn't just get right back on it. Although the presentation has looked good, the winds have not responded yet, but I think that's going to begin now. Looking at the satellite, the eye is beginning to be present. So still, I want y'all to be mentally prepared for the potential that we're going to see big increases in wind speeds from this. We knew it was probably going to happen at some point. Yes, we're sitting at 85 right now, but that's not to say we're going to quickly be up to 115, 120 pretty fast as we head into later on this afternoon and evening. I expect that to happen, and just mentally prepare yourself that there's going to be that's probably going to happen once we get to these new advisories coming in this afternoon and heading into this evening. So something to watch for as we go in. The rapid intensification is still a likely scenario with this. I was trying to see if they're they are en route right now to fly into it. I think one of the airplanes is actually in there currently. Just trying to see if there's any new drops on data coming in. Hold on one second. Just trying to see if there's any new information to provide as far as what the planes are finding. Yeah, so the pressure dropped 8 millibars since it came off of Cuba. So it's not rapid, but it has steadily strengthened a little bit. But again, the presentation does now suggest that it's going to speed up just a bit, I would think. As far as strengthening goes. Give me one sec here. Let me see if I can pull this up and show this to y'all. Some video on Twitter somebody posted there. If y'all can see that, check that out. Some of the different satellite there showing the full intensity there of Ida. Jeez, and you can see the lightning strikes there in the north and the west side. Those satellite pictures always are always really cool to look at. You don't really like it if it's coming towards you, but those are always pretty interesting to look at. The lightning forming and the actual storm getting stronger. And that inner core there, you can see the clouds there toward the middle, some of those cloud tops beginning to get a little bit stronger as well. So yeah, all indications are that this is going to start to strengthen pretty quickly in the next, starting right now in the next few hours. So something to certainly watch for. And then we can kind of look at the center here, and this helps, by the way, when you get an eye, and nobody wants to see the eye, but it kind of helps to watch the motions as well. Once you have an eye, you can kind of see the different wobbles that happen with it. So yeah, Angel, you're right. You can kind of see the intensity of it and where the intensity is actually going to stretch from this storm, right? It's a good point, because look at the lightning strikes from this, and you know where the center is on there, but notice where the intensity of the storm is, right? These bands, by the way, that expand out north and east, so that are going to stretch out well from the center, these are intense, and sometimes you can get into these and you're like, it'll be a normal thunderstorm, but they feel a little bit different. I remember that from years past. You can see the you can see the actual lightning strikes there, and just how intense, and it's only going to get even stronger as it moves moves in toward the coast. So certainly a kind of a sobering picture to look at there. So that's the latest on Ida. I did want to show y'all and kind of come on here and explain kind of what's going on. Let me see here. 1 second. Jimmy says we'd be doing some live updates after you evacuate. Yeah, that's the plan. Look, I'm not like I said earlier. I got to take care of some stuff around the around the house and get some things taken care of here. And then we plan on leaving. I don't know the exact time. There's a lot of traffic right now. I was looking. It looked like Perdido, if we left about an hour ago, would have been about 5 hours, where normally I think it's about 3.5. So an hour and a half delay going that way. I don't know if it'll maybe get a little bit better if we wait a little while, or if it get a little bit worse. I'm not sure. Maybe some folks are going to see these satellite pictures we're about to see and say, okay, we're hauling out of here. So maybe it will get a little bit worse. I'm not really sure. But again, I just didn't really want to take a chance with this, what it could be. So yeah, I mean, the plan is for me to still do some updates. I'm not just gonna sign off here and not update y'all again. Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, I will be posting every update to the page still, and posting some images, posting some thoughts. I still do plan on doing live, whether it's on the computer. I'm going to bring the computer and maybe get it set up over there. But if not, I'll certainly do some lives from the cell phone, and maybe from the phone, and maybe be able to show you guys some things on iPad or whatever. So yeah, I still plan on doing these updates. It may not be in this exact format, but we will still there will still be plenty of updates coming from this page. I promise you that. So that's the latest on Ida. It's still forecast to be a Category 4 at landfall. That has not changed from the presentation of the satellite. I think we're going to start to see a rapid intensification stage, where we start getting into those Category 2, 3 times. And so stay here and stay on the page, and I'll continue to keep y'all updated. But I did want to come on here and just let you guys know what was going on, what I was planning on doing, and but I will certainly keep posting to the page as we go forward here. So there it is. Right now it's at 85 miles per hour. We'll see what they say at 1 o'clock update, see if it's strengthened. I'll post that update to the page, and post everything as we move forward. But I got to take care of some things on my end here. I know y'all understand that, and we'll be getting out of here later on, but I will certainly keep y'all updated and post as we're going. So thank you guys for following, and share this video, tag your friends if you'd like to, but stay with the page and for continuous updates as we go through the rest of today and all the way to landfall tomorrow. All right, y'all.